Hi everybody and welcome to the Greybeard Citizen introduction video. In this video I just want to show some of my gameplay, some of the best bits so far, explain how this came about and the type of videos that will be coming up and already exist. You know the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, as a gamer who grew up with a joystick that had exactly one button, Star Citizen felt less like a game and more like a final exam that I was about to fail. The sheer unapologetic complexity was a brick wall. I was intimidated, overwhelmed, and frankly, I was this close to quitting and going back to something a little bit more predictable. But I didn't. Something stubborn in me, the part that remembers spending an entire weekend trying to beat one level, just refused to give up. I decided I was going to crack the code. I went from a clueless space boomer getting lost in Lawville to building a little guide empire that helps hundreds of new players finally get a handle on this beautiful, buggy, brilliant universe. My journey into the verse didn't start with a bang. It started with me just staring completely baffled at a screen full of more acronyms than a government agency. MFDs, AUEC, Q Drive. It was an alphabetical soup of pure confusion. I think I spent my first hour in the game just trying to figure out how to get from my apartment to the spaceport. The cities are so massive, it's ridiculously easy to get lost before you even see your ship. I'll never forget my first real attempt at flying. I finally found the hangar, called up my starter ship, which felt more like a rental car than a starship, and climbed into the cockpit. It was like sitting in front of the dashboard of a 747. Buttons were blinking, screens were glowing. I pressed something and hey, the hangar doors opened. Success! Then I pressed something else. My ship lurched straight up, slammed into the ceiling and exploded, and that wasn't the first time. That was my first 20 minutes. Then the next few days weren't much better. I'd take delivery missions and fail because I couldn't figure out the star map. I tried bounty hunting and got blown up to bits before my shields were even fully charged. I was space broke, frustrated and seriously feeling like I was about 100 years old for this stuff. That infamous learning curve wasn't just steep, it was a vertical cliff with no handholds. I was ready to log off for good. But then I just looked at the smouldering wreck on my screen and thought, no, this thing isn't going to beat me. That was it. Challenge accepted. I'm not a kid with endless hours to just mess around anymore. I had to get methodical. I had to treat this thing like a project and break the impossible down into smaller, manageable chunks. First up, taming the beast that is flight and controls. Trying to learn everything at once, I ignored combat, mining, trading, all of it. My only goal? Fly from point A to B without becoming a new crater on some moon. I focused on absolute must-know basics. Power on, takeoff, quantum travel, and land. That's it. For anyone starting out, I swear just focus on that. You can hit F4 to pop into third-person view, which really helps you see where your ship is. Once you're out of the atmosphere, hit B to spool up the quantum drive. Point at your destination and you're off. Forgetting everything else was my first big aha moment. I wasn't a fighter pilot yet, I was just a guy learning how to drive. Next, I had to solve the money problem. I was so tired of being broke. The starter missions barely covered fuel and repairs. I needed real income. My first shot at hauling cargo was a complete disaster. I spent the little money I had on a full load of goods, only to have a bug at the trade terminal eat my entire investment. It was quite soul-crushing. Then I discovered the magic of renting. I found out you could rent a proper hauling ship, like a Hull A, for a pretty reasonable daily fee, something like 34,000 AUEC. This was a total game changer. The risk was so much lower. I took one simple delivery contract, loaded up my rental and made my first real profit. A single careful cargo run could pull in a few tens of thousands of credits. I wasn't rich, but I was finally making money. I had a reliable way to fund my adventures. That was the second code cracked. With a little cash in my pocket, I wanted to do something more hands-on. Hauling was profitable, sure, but it felt a bit like being a space trucker. I'd read and seen a little bit about mining, and then the idea of prospecting for valuable minerals on some distant moon sounded pretty cool. I started small, just mining by hand, but I graduated pretty quickly. I learned how to scan for rock signatures. A little blip of 4000 RS might be a small cluster, but when you see a signature pushing 40,000, you could be looking at a mother lode. I remember the thrill of my first big find, a cluster of hadanite, cracking that rock open perfectly, scooping up the glowing gems and flying them back to sell. Felt like a real space gold rush. And that was the third code, finding active engaging work that actually paid well. But the real turning point, the job that would become my thing in the verse, was salvage. A buddy told me about the Drake Vulture. It's not a fighter, not a hauler, it's a dedicated scraper. A ship literally designed to eat other ships. I was intrigued. I saved up and bought one. The gameplay loop was simple and satisfying and incredibly profitable. You just take a contract, fly to a wreck and get to work. You hit M to deploy the salvage laser, and a simple left click starts scraping valuable material right off the hull. There was something so deeply satisfying about it, taking this dead, useless hunk of metal and turning it into neat stacks of valuable composite. It was quiet, methodical work. I'd put on a podcast, fly out to an asteroid field and just get lost in the job. No pirates, no pressure, just me, my vulture, and a field opportunity. I'd found my calling, the final and most important code was cracked. As I was documenting my own learning, jotting down notes, making spreadsheets, figuring out the best routes and methods, I looked at it all one day and realised I had accidentally created the very thing I wished I had had when I started. A roadmap. My personal logs were basically turned into a series of guides. So I started sharing them. First just with a few friends, then on some forums. Eventually I decided to start a channel. I call myself Greybeard Citizen, making a space for older gamers who felt as lost as I did. The idea was simple. Guides made by an older gamer for older new players. I explained things the way I learned them, step by step. No assumptions, no jargon. I covered the basics, how to make your first 100k, hauling, a beginning guide to rock mining, and of course a deep dive into my absolutely favourite career, salvaging. I got a good response and comments started to come in from people just like me, on the verge of quitting and really wanted to get to grips with it. People who felt the game was just too complex, too unforgiving. My story became a blueprint for them. And honestly, seeing a comment from a fellow space boomer thanking me for finally helping them get the flight model, or a new player proudly posting a picture of the first ship they bought with money that they earned from my salvage guide, that was a better reward than any amount of AUEC. I wasn't just playing a game anymore, I was helping to build a community. So today when I log into Star Citizen, that old feeling of intimidation is gone. I just see a universe of things to do. I can confidently fly ships, and I never thought that I'd be able to afford. I run cargo loops worth a small fortune, but more importantly, I see a community that I'm genuinely proud to be a part of. The secret to cracking Star Citizen wasn't about having the fastest reflexes or memorising every keybind on day one. It was patience. It was about taking this huge, impossible looking challenge and breaking it down into small, winnable victories. It was about embracing the struggle and then sharing what I'd learned. If a stubborn old gamer like me can go from exploding on the launchpad to helping thousands find their wings, then believe me, anyone can. The verse is vast, but it's not unconquerable. So what was your first aha moment in Star Citizen? What was the thing that finally clicked and made you fall in love with this crazy game? Let me know down in the comments. I really do read every single one. And hey, if you're just starting out or you're looking for more no-nonsense guides, think about subscribing. I'm building a community for players who want to master the universe without all of the headaches. If you're about to sign up, use my referral code on the screen, down in the description below as well. It'll give you a nice little starting bonus of in-game cash to kickstart your own adventure. Thanks for watching, fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse.